Hi, my name is Professor Luce, and today we're going to be talking about chapters 1 through 5. So, I do have some additional material that goes beyond the scope of the textbook, and that's why we have these sort of discussions via YouTube. So, yes, some of this material is going to be in the textbook, but I also add my own experiences into this presentation so that way you get some material outside of the textbook that'll certainly help you when it comes time to go to presenting your speeches. So, the first thing that we need to talk about today is why public speaking is important. And you have the basic reasons like it builds confidence, it allows career advancements, and it presents new opportunities. Oftentimes, you may be thinking, well, I'm never going to give a speech in front of 30 people. But what I found by talking to lots of students that you often have these impromptu scenarios or you have meetings that you end up having to run, and the skills that you're going to learn in this class will translate to being able to run those meetings effectively. So, as an example, I had one person that worked in a hospital and they had to meet with the other nurses and tell them about a new policy that's being implemented. Well, public speaking helped them because it allowed them to become organized, effective, and efficient in terms of time management while also conveying the message clearly. Now, obviously, that's going to be a different scenario than if you have to give a wedding toast, but the same principles are still there. You need basic organization. It's really important that you're making eye contact. You don't want to be doing anything weird with your hands, and you want to be seen as somebody that's proficient in your career. So you project confidence. All those things you learn in this course, and then you can apply them as appropriate to your future career. Additionally, when you think about career advancement, those that end up becoming supervisors need to be seen as a leader. They need to be organized. They need to be able to bring people together and convey messages effectively. All things that we do in this class. So, in terms of career advancement, those that are willing to speak up, that are willing to speak to others on behalf of the company, those are the ones that are more likely to get promoted. Finally, we want to talk about other opportunities. Being comfortable talking to people, not just necessarily in the public speaking setting, but in small groups. Those are where you build connections with other people, and that is how you advance in a career. You may find that you make a connection with somebody and you've become friends with them on LinkedIn, and then 2, 3, 4 years down the road, you're looking to transition to a different role, and you can reconnect with those people all because you didn't feel weird talking to somebody you didn't know. Public speaking is one of those things where you may very well be talking to people you know, but often we end up talking to people we don't know as well. And when you're confident, when you are able to convey your messages effectively, those are things that can lead to new opportunities for you. This course will develop some specific skill sets that I think are pretty obvious to me, but I've been teaching this course so long that I want to make sure we highlight them a little bit so that way you have an idea of what we're going to be doing throughout this course. Research is not necessarily something that may jump out at you as a skill that we focus on in this class, but you will be doing a lot of research, especially for the informative and persuasive speeches. Overall, for all of your speeches, you're doing some level of research. There's always a component of audience analysis, which you see is the second line there. But you want to be able to research your audience if you're not incredibly familiar with them. If you can't make reasonable assumptions about that audience, you're going to have to do some research. So, in addition to building your research skills, one thing you will always be doing is analyzing your audience. And that's just essentially identifying who is your audience and then how do you reach that audience? How do you connect with them? And if you think about your group of friends, they are likely your friends because you connect with them. You didn't have to do a formal audience analysis, but you do things like you find out, do you have common interests? Are you from the same hometown? Are you pursuing the same hobbies? Do you have the same career objectives? So those are all things that you do with your friends. Audience analysis is just going beyond that scope a little bit for public speaking situations so you can adapt your message specifically to them. Organization, I think, is key. You probably see how that's relevant within a speech, and so that's one of those skills that we're going to work on. Supporting your claims goes along with research, but it's a little bit beyond that because it's taking the research that you find and then putting it into the right order to show a logical conclusion that can be drawn from whatever it is that you're telling your audience. And then finally, the last thing we're going to talk about is distinguishing between arguments and uncivil speech. So I do have a couple of examples that I'll provide links to, but there is a difference. We often think about, persuasion as me telling you what you need to do. And that's not really what persuasion is. Instead, it's presenting arguments that bring the audience along on a journey. And that's a lot different because then uncivil speech and persuasion, we have disagreements, but uncivil speech is a lot of like the name calling that you often see in politics. So whenever we have an election year, it seems like we see more and more of this. And really what we should try to get back to is we can have disagreements, but base them on evidence and logic and avoid examples of uncivil speech. So here we have two different videos, and I'll provide the links to them in the YouTube video, but I wanted you to be able to get an idea of what you're looking for, and there are two different examples of uncivil speech, so that way you can see the difference. You already possess a lot of skills that translate very, very well to public speaking. So those two skills are conversation and written skills. Conversation, this is something that by this stage in life comes naturally to you. You're able to engage in conversation with other individuals. And that is what you're doing, except in public speaking, it's more of a one-way communication. In terms of the written format, you have written papers before. I'm sure you're used to the 5-paragraph essay. A speech is not exactly the same as a 5-paragraph essay, but there's a resemblance of the structure there. So you have an introduction, a body. It does not have to be 3 main ideas. Speeches can be 3 main ideas, but often they are not. And then you have a conclusion as well. Speeches are audience centered. And by this, what that means is your focus is the audience. It's not, I have a message, here you go, that's it, accept my message. Instead, by being audience centered, it means that you identify topics that are of interest to the audience. That yes, they should be of interest to you, but if it's not of interest to the audience, you don't really have a speech. You should not be giving that seminar. It means you find ways to adapt to the audience, whether it's through examples, language use, attire. There's lots of different ways that you can adapt. We're going to talk about speech anxiety, and I'll include a link to this clip as well. But what I want you to think about as you watch this video is, what do you notice about his hand movements or lack thereof? And do you already know how to properly gesture? And if so, what advice would you give to this person or to your classmates? There's a couple of different ways to manage nervousness. I think of it as two different stages. The first stage is how to reduce nervous energy, and the second stage is what do you do with the nervous energy you have left. So in terms of reducing nervous energy, the number one thing you can do is practice. I know the book talks about this, but that is key, is being able to practice. That will reduce as much nervous energy as possible. Aside from that, things you can do, this is going to sound counterintuitive or something that you may not want to do, but it does help. Reducing caffeine intake, or at least minimizing it. Caffeine gives you energy, and remember, you're trying to bring down nervous energy. So if you consume a lot of caffeine before giving a speech, it's going to make it a lot harder. Gestures can actually, planning gestures can help you to reduce nervous energy. So that's one of those things that if you know what you're going to do, it helps you to avoid doing weird things with your hands. Other things you can do to reduce nervous energy, you can control your breathing. A lot of times people will take 10 long, deep, slow breaths before starting their speech. Obviously, don't do that in front of the audience, but that's one of those things where you can do it as you're getting ready to record your speeches, or before you go in front of people, do it privately. Some people will meditate the morning of. Exercise can be appropriate. Controlling what you eat. You don't want to eat a big heavy meal right before you speak. Other things that you can do, listen to music, just remembering that your audience is going to be focused on you, but they have other things in their life going on. And so they're usually not judging you based on the smallest of things. In fact, what you'll find out is you perceive things to go negatively when often the audience doesn't even notice. That's the first step, reducing nervous energy. Aside from that, things you can do is handle the nervous energy you have left. So gestures are a really good way to get rid of some of that nervous energy. If you have energy and you don't move, you tend to start to shake. Your hands will start to shake because you tense up. So planning out gestures will help you to manage that nervous energy. You can be a little bit louder. Sometimes having that extra effort will help to get rid of some of that nervous energy. Also, being comfortable with silence. One of the things that I've noticed is that you have verbal fillers because you don't like silence. So rather than just taking a brief pause, you will start to say, very few people say, although that is a verbal filler. You will say words that don't really fit in that section. Also, you will extend words. So today, those are things that you want to work on reducing as much as possible. I'm including a slide here. You can pause it and look at these verbal warm-ups, but they do help you. You want to start slow and then go faster. As an example, I like New York. I love New York. I like and love unique New York. The second time would be faster. I like New York. I love New York. I like and love unique New York. And the third time as fast as you can. The point of these verbal warm-ups is that you get used to talking before you actually have to present. And these are something that I do, before class, because sometimes you don't talk to anybody ahead of time. So if I haven't seen anybody, I will just try to talk a little bit before giving a presentation. That way you don't get that feeling like your throat is stuck. So these are just some verbal warm-ups for you to reduce nervous energy, but also to get you used to talking. And finally, the last thing for today, listening. The book talks a lot about selective listening, active listening, listening goals, listening for main ideas, evaluating reasoning evidence, and offering constructive feedback. So it is difficult to listen as an audience member. I completely understand that. There are probably times that you might zone out, maybe hopefully just a little bit. But the idea is that these concepts will help you to become a better listener. And I'm sure as you found out in your work environment or even in academia, when you don't listen, it becomes problematic. So you do want to try to focus on improving your listening skills as much as possible. And that's something we'll talk throughout the semester about. All right, that's all I have. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And I look forward to a great semester with you all.